Second reading of House bills and joint resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 5001, a joint resolution to apply for a convention of states under Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, to limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and to limit the terms of office for federal officials and members of Congress.
HJR 5001, having had its second reading, is now for consideration and final passage. Representative Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nearly 235 years ago, in the summer of 1787, 55 delegates from 13 independent and sovereign states gathered together in the assembly room of the Pennsylvania State House in Philadelphia, PA, for the Constitutional Convention of 1787. As a result of that convention, the founding delegates created our founding Constitution, the Bill of Rights that spelled out our God-given rights and formed our country, the United States of America, of which many could argue is the greatest constitutional republic ever created by mankind. The founders created a central federal government for the specific enumerated purposes of common defense, a national postal system, and Article I judges to resolve disputes between the states. These men were so concerned with limiting the powers of the central government that they also included the 10th Amendment at that ratification of the Constitution, which further limited the federal government's power by reserving all powers not enumerated in the Constitution to the states, respectively, or to the people. Also, when the Founding Fathers drafted the Constitution, they not only understood but desired that future generations be able to amend and change certain parts of that Constitution. This is why they included specific provisions inside of the Constitution for how Congress or the legislatures of 2/3 of several states shall call a convention for proposing amendments. This is the language specifically inside of Article 5 of the Constitution. It might be surprising to some that something as important as changing the supreme law of the land that is outlined and contained in a mere paragraph as Article 5. Although there's a higher requirement for ratifying any amendment when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of several states or by conventions of 3/4 thereof, the process is not complicated. Amendments must be approved by 3/4 of states. This is partly why, even though there have been approximately 10,000 proposed amendments, only 27 were ever ratified. Nevertheless, according to the Founding Fathers' original intent, if 3/4 of the states want to change something in the Constitution, they should be able to, thus reflecting we, the people. I believe the Constitution is a brilliant document, and the founders were inspired and led by divine providence in its drafting. Also, I recognize, just like they did, there are amendments and clarifications needed. It is no secret that the current leadership in the Congress has become so disconnected from the founding ideals and constitutional limitations placed on the federal government. To think that these leaders would restrain themselves once in power or propose amendments that solve current problems would be naive and mistaken. Fortunately, the Founding Fathers offered a solution outside of Congress. They suggested a convention for proposing amendments, also known as a convention of states. Many today are nervous of such a convention, fearing that it might become a runaway convention and threaten the very constitutional republic that we are seeking to protect. While this fear is common, it is not grounded in a constitutional reality. There are several specific reasons. For example, Article 5 stipulates that even after the convention proposes amendments, those amendments must subsequently be ratified by 3/4 of the states. This high bar effectively prevents any opportunity for a runaway convention. An objection by a single legislative chamber in just 13 states kills an amendment proposed by the Convention of States. Furthermore, any amendments approved are required by the Constitution to be part of this Constitution. Meaning, according to the Constitution itself, a Convention of States could not replace the current Constitution. Thank you. There are several historic examples where states have called for a convention to propose a specific amendment, such as the balanced budget. Interestingly, at the threshold of joining states grew close to the necessary number, Congress felt the pressure to vote on the amendment. Although the balanced budget amendment has not passed at this point, it does serve as one example that states calling for a convention can also pressure Congress to take up specific amendments that are of concern to the people. It is for this reason, and for many more, that I support a convention of states, and I humbly ask for your support today on HJR 5001. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Odenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise because I wanted to say just a few words in support of this, and I commend my colleague for having the courage to bring it. I just jotted down a few thoughts as I was listening just now, but as I think about this, for starters, I've heard from more people than I can count from my district in Lawrence County saying we must do this, and I don't think those people are wrong. And I've heard the debate over the past year, let's say, about this. And I think a lot of people are tempted to say, well, nothing can come of this. This is just kind of a waste of time. It's sort of an exercise in feel good. But as our colleague mentioned, you know, the people in the states form the federal government, not the other way around. And they were people just like us. They weren't, you know, we're not able to rise to the same level that they did. We can do the same things. And so I just wanted to say that, and I guess end with this quote from Thomas Jefferson. He said, "Let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution." And we've got to get back to that. South Dakota would make the 17th state, I believe, working. Just, we've all got to get involved. We've all got to do something. And this country's off the rails. So I would urge your support. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support also. So you might take a double take and look at me because I've been the one that's been against it. I kind of look back at what happened since the last election with this runaway spending that we have of money that we don't even own, that's borrowed from a foreign government, a lot of times China, that we have to pay back with interest. And we just have to do something to stop this government. We can't just sit here and let it go. Now the other side of this, they talk about adding another 2 amendments to the Constitution that would fix it. Well, I'm for the other side too. Do it then. Add 2 more amendments. If you have one for term limits, let's have it. If you have one for controlling runaway government that we have, let's have that amendment. I'm for both sides. But we got to do something. We can't just sit here and kick the can down the road. It's time to do it today. I mean, what we're asking for is to get 34 states on board so we can go to D.C. and have a convention. Anything we approve there has to come back and get 38 states to ratify it. So if they do something, you know, that's really off the charts, I know the senator in the other chamber is worried that they take our 2 senators away from us small states and give one to California or one to Texas, and we'd only have 1 and they'd have 3. And that would be terrible if they tried to do that. But it has to come back and get approved by 38 states in order for that to happen. So there is checks and balances to this. It isn't like they're going to go there and wreck the country. And there also is rules of our delegates that we send there, that what they can do. They can't just go rogue on us. So, I mean, what do we have to lose? How many more trillions in debt do we have to go? But we say enough's enough. Is it 30 trillion? One of these days, this country is going to be like the Soviet Union. If you remember the Soviet Union, we didn't beat them in a war. We beat them because they went bankrupt. And the Chinese are going to do that to us. We're not going to get beat in a war. We're going to go bankrupt, and they own part of this country already. They're just going to take their assets and live here. We are in bad straits. We need to do something. I'm for both sides. So let's get this passed today. Thank you very much.
Representative Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, need to do this more often. Okay, 2014, I was one of 11 South Dakota legislators that went to Mount Vernon for what was to be the seed of the Convention of States movement. It was an incredible meeting. We had legislators from 34 countries, over 100 states. We had over 100 people there, and the caliber of the character of those men and women that were there was phenomenal. And it was just outstanding to hear them as different ones around the assembly took turns and just prayed over this very movement, and just that God's hand would be on it, and that he would be moving in this movement. And so I just wanted to mention some notables who support a convention of states according to the Article 5 of our Constitution. Mark Levin, Senator Rand Paul, Ben Shapiro, Pete Hegseth, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Sean Hannity, Senator Tom Coburn, Dr. James Dobson, Senator Jim DeMint, David Barton of Wall Builders, Michael Ferris, Charlie Kirk, Senator Ron Johnson, former Governor Sarah Palin, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Governor Greg Abbott, James O'Keefe, Senator Ben Sasse, Governor Ron DeSantis, David Horowitz, Senator Marco Rubio, Dr. Ben Carson, former Governor Mike Huckabee, former Governor Jeb Bush, former Governor Bobby Jindal, Representative Louis Gohmert, and Morton Blackwell, and numerous others that aren't quite as familiar to us. And just to name a couple of opponents, Hillary Clinton, George Soros. If you're on the fence, please consider the great company that you'll be in if you choose to support the COS. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, this is my 6th year in this chamber. It'll be the 6th time to vote on a Convention of States issue, but it's my first time to talk about it. And the reason I'm talking about it today is because I'm frustrated. I don't think we can sit by and not speak anymore. I think the article, Section 2 of the bill hits home for me. Whereas the federal government has created a crushing national debt through improper and imprudent spending. If you need an example of that, we got one in appropriations last week. We got a report that says federal government has sent $13.5 billion to South Dakota in the last 20 months. Divide that by the number of people in South Dakota, man, woman, and child, we each got $15,528. Did you get yours? Me neither. So where'd it go? Well, what governments do is they send it out to other governments. And what happens when government grows? Freedom shrinks. You know, I was reminded of the scripture passage that says, the borrower is the slave of the lender. That's what our federal government is doing to us. It's turning us all into borrowers, mostly our grandchildren. That's why I'm here. I want my kids to have the freedom that I grew up with. And we're not going to get there if we don't change something. And this is a method that the founding fathers said was a way to change something. Now I want to share just one other quick thing with you. If you go, you'll have a computer in front of you. Just search usdebtclock.org. It looks kind of like this.
Representative Mills, we can't use props.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Anyway, if you do that, up in the upper left-hand corner, there's the debt is ticking away, and one of the representatives in the back mentioned 30 trillion. We're almost there. In fact, I put a stopwatch on this thing over the weekend. For every 40 seconds, it adds $1 million to the debt in the United States. That's where we're at today. I can remember when they were talking about, we're going to hit 20 trillion, and now we're approaching 30. I would just share one other thing. We get bombarded with a lot of email on this issue. That happens every year. But this really struck me. I got vote no emails from Megan Norman from Texas, Craig Wiseman from Texas, Mary Mann from Virginia, Lynn from Spokane, Washington, Beverly from Georgia. You know who I got vote yes emails from? Joe Klein in White, Caleb Crevier in Elkton, Darren Neiman in Clear Lake, and Levi Smith in Brookings. The people who want us to pass this are South Dakotans, and they're from our districts. I'm asking you to stand with me today. Let's vote this thing through and send it over to the Senate with a strong message. It's time to do something. Thank you.
Further remarks? Hearing no further remarks. There was no opponent testimony. No need for rebuttal. Would you still like your? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And you're right, there was no rebuttal. So I'm going to leave a couple bullets in the magazine, if I will. But I do want to let everybody know the list of other states that have supported this: Texas, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Missouri, North Dakota, Alabama, Arizona, Mississippi, Arkansas, Indiana, Utah, Alaska, and just recently, as of this week, Wisconsin. And soon, coming probably this week or early next, Nebraska. These are red states, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be the next. Vote yes.
Question for the body is final passes of HJR 5001. All those in favor vote yea. All those opposed, nay. Madam Clerk, please unlock the voting machine. Would the members proceed to vote?
Mr. Speaker, all members have voted.
Please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were ayes 39, nays 30, excused 1.
HJR 5001, having received an affirmative vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed.